Hey everyone, this is Nate, and this is the Nader Tater channel art. Today I'm going to review this ZimaCube. Now the ZimaCube is a personal cloud, so this would be a NAS or network attached storage. Maybe some people would call it a server, but basically it has the capability of having 10 different drives, 6 of them being hard drives, either 3.5 or 2.5 inch, as well as 4 slots for SSDs that are in there. This one is the non-pro version, so right now I think it's about $650 in price. So comparable to maybe some other ones that I've been looking at from other well-known brands. ZimaCube is a newer product, and they have a Zima OS, so they have their own operating system. However, you can run different third-party operating systems on here as well. For me, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to see how the Zima OS does and see how well it does. Now, truth be told, I did look out on online at other reviewers that have had this ZimaCube in the past, both this one and the Pro version. There have been some critical ones out there. Some of it looks like due to prototype hardware getting early stuff. The other thing is just the fact that it is different. For me personally, I am not necessarily, I would call myself a computer guy or get really into the nitty gritty. I obviously have a YouTube channel. I have lots of storage. I have a bit of an embarrassment to say that my current hard drive storage is with external USB hard drives. I have multiple ones of them, and I have probably about 50 terabytes of space. And so I've been looking at getting a NAS specifically to combine all this together and have proper RAID backup protection for them. Right now I do some manual backup and saving one in a safe, so it's definitely a very immature way to do data storage. So this is going to be a big improvement. I bought 6 12 terabyte hard drives, and I'll put links to this as well as some other stuff, including the ZimaCube, in the video description down below for you to take a look at. But what I'm going to do here is just basically give you my unbiased opinion of how does this perform for someone that isn't used to any specific NAS environment or ecosystem out there. Now, ZimaCube did send me this unit to review, so I did get that sponsored from them. But this is what I think of the product and how it works for me. Alright, so if we look at what comes in the box with this ZimaCube Non-Pro, you get a 3-foot Ethernet cable. It looks like probably a 3-foot USB-C to USB-C cable. You get your power brick here with the cable there. For that, they actually do include a couple little screwdrivers, Phillips screwdriver, as well as a hex key here for installing like hard drive screws, which they also include. So you get all your different hard drive or your SSD screws. Now there's also a instruction book here, but really it's telling you to go online and install Zima Client. That is will help you go and find and set up the device once it's plugged in and on your network. Alright, so if we take a look at the front of the unit here, it has a couple USB-A ports, USB-C port, and then a 3.5 millimeter audio jack port, as well as a power button. And then this grill here pops off. It's just held on with magnets there. And this is how you get access to your drive. So the hard drive ones are easy. You just press the little button there, and then these slide out and allow you to take your hard drive, and then they go in with the standard screws into the side if it's the 3.5 like these, or if it's a 2.5 then the screw goes in through the bottom and these slide right in. The last one has a thumb screw, and this is how you take out for the SSD ports that are in there. Alright, so once you take that thumb screw out, it's easy to take the hard drive off beside it, and then that way you can grab hold of this tray and slide it out. And you can see here that I don't have any in there, and I don't plan to actually put any in there right now. It does come included with a built-in SSD for the operating system, so that's separate from the storage drives here. Now on the back of the unit, on this Non-Pro one, we have a display port, a HDMI port, and then we have 4 USB-A ports. Then we have 2 Ethernet ports. These are 2.5 gig ports. And then we have the power. So that is what we have here on the back. Now this backside grill also pops off, but this one actually has plastic snaps. You got to be a little bit careful with it to make sure you don't break any of those tabs. But then back here you can see this is the cooling fans that cool the main house. The CPU has its own fan inside as well. Alright, so I went to my tablet and I scanned that QR code, and it basically sends me to findzima.com. and it says that a mobile app is coming, but right now they don't have a mobile app, so I needed to hop on my computer. So here I am on my Windows-based computer, and it goes to findzima.com, and then here, this is where I want to download the Zima client. So let me go ahead and download this Windows one, and then that will get that process going. Okay, so it just took a minute for it to install, and it did instantly find the ZimaCube that I have plugged in. You do need to plug it in via Ethernet cable. Mine is up on a switch on the main floor, and then it goes through Ethernet to another switch before this computer is connected via Wi-Fi. Okay, so here is the welcome page. Now I need to create a account. Okay, so once you log in, now you can see what you want to start. All right, so my first step, putting in those 6 hard drives, is I do want to set up them as a RAID setup. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it to start. All right, so here is kind of the dashboard page. This is where it is showing me that I'm only using 8% or 5% of CPU and 16% of the RAM. All right, so I bought Western Digital hard drives, and I did get this little card in the package with them that gave you a warning about covering up pin number 3 on the SATA power connector in case your hard drive is not power disabled feature compatible with the ZimaCube. So I guess this is a fairly common issue with some of these enterprise hard drives, is that some devices don't work with them and they don't power up. So what happened was, when I put them in, I powered up ZimaCube, it said I had no hard drives in there, which obviously was not the case because I just spent time putting all 6 in there. So I had to put a little piece of tape over the first 3 pins. The most important one is pin number 3, and then lo and behold, they boot right up, and then they all show up here now in the drive selection. So now I want to combine them to create a RAID system. All right, so I need to go through and format and enable each one of these. All right, so I just went through and formatted and enabled each of the hard drives. Now I have all these hard drives. Now I want to set up the RAID system. All right, so a little bit of a pain after I had to reformat and enable each of the drives. I had to disable each of the drives independently so I could get the RAID option to show up. So before I did that, if I had the hard drive shown up here, I did not get the option here to combine the hard drives. So that was something I had to kind of read about. And then in here in RAID, you can pick from these RAID 0, RAID 1, and RAID 5. And RAID 5 is my favorite. It gives you a good balance between speed and security. You get 67% of the maximum capacity. So I'm going to pick that. Make sure all 6 of my hard drives are selected here that I have in there. And that shows they're all 12 terabytes. And that will give me a total of 60 terabytes of usable available space. All right, so there we go. We have main storage success. We can go ahead and click view files. Obviously, I have no files. Now, if I want to just test out how quickly something moves, I can click upload files here and try to upload a video. All right, so this is a 3 gig file, and we'll just see how quickly it is moving here. All right, unfortunately, this is where it went a little bit south. So I did get it set up very quick and easy, I'll have to admit, and I was able to start moving data there, which was fairly easy to set up. I was happy with the ease of setting up the RAID system and getting that set up. I had done nothing else to the ZimaCube or the OS, the software. I haven't added any other apps or anything yet, but instead I started to say, okay, let me just move my files from these USB drives. So I was moving it from my computer down here over the Ethernet up to the ZimaCube, and it's terabytes of data. So it was taking hours of time because I was maxed out at the 1,000 megabits per second of the Ethernet there. So I let it go, and I came back a few hours later, and I was trying to log in or see the status in the web browser, and it was frozen. I could not get access to the ZimaCube itself. I went up to the unit itself. I could see that it was on and making noise, and it sounded like it was writing to the hard drives, meaning they were on and spinning and active. But no indication. I left it there for a few hours to see if anything would change. I still could not log into it. I went into my Wi-Fi system and I saw that it was no longer on the network as well. So I said, okay, I got to restart it, and I need to force it off and back on. When I did that, it did come back on. I could log back in. Everything could work again, but it did fail in the transfer of those data files from my computer down here. So I said, okay, let me start it again. And did it again and again overnight. It did freeze up on me again and effectively crash. So after that, I opted that I probably don't want to use the Zima OS. I was on Zima OS version 1.2.4. In case you're wondering, I did reach out to their help desk support folks, and they were going to have me go down the route of checking the memory to make sure there was no bad sectors there in the memory, and that was perhaps causing the crashes. I was too impatient to wait or to try to diagnose that, and instead I said, you know what, I'm going to install a third-party OS on it. And for me, there's kind of two main choices out there. It's TrueNAS and Unraid. And honestly, I have no experience with either one of them. But what I did is my brother has his own NAS, and he uses TrueNAS. And so he offered to help me, and that was the easy tiebreaker. Said, great, if you have experience with it, let's dive in and do that. So I went online, grabbed the image file, I put it onto a USB stick, and then put it in, and I installed TrueNAS on the ZimaCube so I could use it. And I'll show you that here. I'll log into the TrueNAS and show you that interface and kind of the pros and cons I've seen of that. Alright, so to log into it, I just go into a web browser. For me here, I'm on my local network, so I can just type in the local IP address. Obviously, if you have something where you're remote accessing it from outside your house, then you need to have a public IPv4 address that you can type in either through a DNS server or some other way for you to access your home. But for this one, I just type in the local one, and then I get a TrueNAS login. You can then log into the device and see the current status here. Now, one downside to the TrueNAS setup is that I have heard that it does eat up more of your memory or your RAM, and that is the case here. Before I get down to that, though, I do want to show here, since I've gone to this TrueNAS, I've not had a problem here. It's showing that it's 9 days that it's been on without a problem in there, and so I've had this unit for a couple weeks now. I've been testing it first for a few days with the Zima OS, and then with TrueNAS, and I've done some reboots here or there for different things. Here now, for the most part, I would say it's supposed to be idle more or less right now, but it's using up, about 10% or less of the CPU, doing whatever it's doing. You can see my temps are down there, not a problem at all. And you can see, though, that my memory is about half fully used, and then you can see you have some cache there and some other stuff. But it does look like I probably could benefit maybe from a little bit more memory there. This one is the non-pro ZimaCube, so that means I think I can have, I can double the memory basically from the 8 to the 16. If I want the pro version, I think it comes with 16, and you can double it to 32 gigs of memory there. So if I look here at my RAID setup, the TrueNAS, to be honest with you, it was a way harder to set up than the Zima OS. I actually liked a lot of things about the Zima OS. I think they describe it as elegantly simple. And honestly, I would agree with that. It is very simple. I thought it was very intuitive for a person that had not used a NAS before. I was able to navigate it very easily myself. TrueNAS, to be honest with you, I would not have figured it out nearly as quickly if literally my brother was not remoted in and helping me go through the steps of some of the nuances with TrueNAS to get it to actually be set up properly. So there is actually a lot of good things to say about the Zima OS, in my opinion. The problem is that it just wasn't stable for me to even do my testing where I needed to move files. And like some of my files, I think I took 24 hours of time to move the 10 or 11 terabytes of data over, so I could not have it crashing or freezing up, after several hours, because I would never get the data transferred over. So that's why I went to TrueNAS, but I do actually hope that Zima OS kind of matures with time and becomes a very reliable OS that you can use, because I think it has promise. So here for me, my 12 terabyte hard drives combine here and give me my my storage pool that I have. Alright, so here on my storage dashboard, you can see I'm using a RAID setup, and now I have a dual redundancy, so I can lose 2 of the 6 hard drives and not lose any data. In here, you can see that means that I have about 44 terabytes of usable, and that's out of what 60 terabytes of total disk space storage. So I'm using up, a couple dozen terabytes of storage for redundancy. And then you can see I've used 18 terabytes of actual data. I haven't even transferred all my stuff over yet, and I have 25 terabytes of free space here. So all that seems to be working well. I've been happy with my used enterprise hard drives there. They've been plugging in and working well. Okay, as far as apps go, the apps I have added here, let's go into the app section here, is 2 of them. One is a file browser. I was a little surprised at first with TrueNAS because I'm like, where are my files? How do I see them? And at first my brother was like, well, yeah, they don't really have anything there. You access it through your computer, so that makes no sense to me. So I really like that in Zima OS. They already had that kind of default in the OS system. With TrueNAS, I have to add in this file browser application that allows me to go in there and actually see any of my hierarchy for my data storage. And then Immich I use for basically my Google photo replacement, and so far I've been happy with it. I have my wife on it, I have myself on it. We're I think they're called partners inside of there, so we can access each other's photos, but they are separate, so they don't show up on my timeline, and her pictures don't show up on my timeline, and my pictures don't show up on her timeline unless we go in there and actively try to see them. But they're all stored together as one data set. So that's exactly what I was looking for. That seems to be doing what I want it to overall now. One thing I will say is when I was moving all of my files, I was doing some stuff like moving terabytes of data as well as copying photos over through the Immich system. So I was having to process all those photos for the first time for facial recognition, other AI stuff, and I was certainly giving the ZimaCube a workout. I was getting some high temperatures there because I was running the device at like 100% CPU, 100% disk drive read-write capability there, and I was getting some higher temperatures. Never had a problem or slow down or anything, but I did see a couple higher temperatures. I'll show you some screenshots of that right now. But it all worked, and I did not get any failure. So to me, my holdup probably on speed-wise is probably still my network or my hard drive actually, hard drive write speed. So if I had more SSD and I was using that, I might have run into a CPU and or RAM or network limit more so than the hard drive limit. Alright, so if I look at the ZimaCube as a hardware standpoint instead of the software side, considering that I did not use the Zima OS, and one quick note on that is, kind of once you invest in a OS, clearly to me it seems like it's a little bit harder to break out of the ecosystem, and that's namely because like the RAID that I'm using is really a software RAID. So it's kind of somewhat tied to the OS there directly. So if I'm using the Zima OS RAID, once I switched over to TrueNAS, I had to redo the RAID, often meaning reformatting the hard drives in order to do that. So it's not as easy as changing applications if you want to actually change your OS on your NAS. So in here, if I look at it, they're back on the hardware standpoint. The $30 that it appears to be to do the RAM upgrade, I would definitely pick that. That's something that right now, if there's one thing I was kind of missing or lacking, I felt like it was a little bit of RAM space on this base unit for the stuff that I'm doing. So I would recommend that. Obviously, it's pretty easy for me to pop in a little bit more RAM, so I might do that anyways on my current one. But when I look at the unit itself, I do think it's kind of a cool design. I do like the cube design, and I think it does have some good features from a different types of ports that are on there. I like that the ports are both on the front and the back side of the unit, and I think for the most part they kind of make sense. Obviously, if you're using the unit for like a media server, it makes sense to have the display ports, HDMI type things on the back side so that it can be plugged into a TV or other monitor or screen that you need. It has Ethernet ports back there. The base unit has the 2.5 gig ones. The Pro version has the 10 gig Ethernet ports out there, which obviously if you're moving a lot of files over it, that's something that would be important. I like the USB ports on the front as well as the headphone jack if you needed that. So I think overall, from a styling standpoint, I think it's pretty good. I think from the number of ports they have, I think it meets most people's needs there. And then if I look at the other features of the unit itself, from a CPU standpoint, I really didn't have a huge problem with the base CPU for my stuff. That's basically just doing data storage, data backup, image processing, that kind of stuff. Yes, I ran it to 100% CPU when I was moving like 50,000 photos over to it, and it had to process all of them. But that's really a one-time event. And now when I upload my daily photos, whenever I'm plugging in my phone at nighttime, yes, it takes up some CPU time, but it's nothing that's a big hindrance. And so I'm not hurting there. Hard drive capacity, I love that it has 6 hard disk drive spaces, and then you have the 4 extra SSD spaces. That's plenty for me, and I've always actually, quite frankly, been a little bit surprised by some of the other units out there that only have like 2 or 3 or 4 bays. So to me, 5 or more bays is great. So having 6 plus 4 is outstanding. And then I think the rest of the unit itself, from a physical design standpoint, ease of use, accessibility to serviceable parts, seems to be nice and straightforward. Alright, so just to touch on the specs a little bit more, it's the Intel N100 on the base unit. I think it's the i5 on the Pro version. You get your 7 bays, you get USB-C, PCIe, 2.5 gig Ethernet, up to 164 terabytes total of storage, with a 6 hard drive and 4 SSDs that are out there. So that is the quick summary for the base unit. And then if we look at a little bit more specs here, you can see that obviously you get pre-installed with Zima OS, but it's compatible OSs with many other different types. And again, mine there is on the bottom line. There is TrueNAS is the one that I opted to end up using. But I think some of the other ones have a lot of promise as well. Namely, I would say Unraid. I've heard some good things about that from friends as well. So here's the processor, and yes, the Pro version has the i5. It's got more memory. It's got the same system storage. It's got better PCIe expansion slots, and as well as the 7th bay as well. It's got basically the same storage capability. It's got the faster network. It's got the Thunderbolt 4. It's got more USB 3.0 ports, and then it's got better PCIe compatibility as well. Alright, so overall, I'm actually very happy that I have my own personal cloud or NAS setup here in the house. It's working well. I have lots of terabytes of data. I moved over to it. I'm already using it. I have the Immich set up, and even my wife was actually convinced that it was actually a good thing to have this once I showed her that all of her photos were backed up on there. She loves taking pictures, and that she could access them anywhere, as well as she could see my pictures as well. So that's the beauty of having your own personal cloud, is all that compatibility, adjustability, and access to multiple different people from all around the world. And from that aspect, I'm actually very happy with it. I do hope that they improve the Zima OS, because it has a lot of promise. I think some of the other videos or reviews don't give it enough credit for actually how easy it is to use, intuitive from my perspective. It just wasn't stable enough to use it for my needs, but I think it will get there. I'm sure it will get there with some more development on their side. And then, once that happens, I think this becomes a very easy to use setup that is literally plug and play, and you're up and running in like 5 minutes. Whereas, honestly, it took me a few hours with the TrueNAS setup, so it probably scares away a lot of people. But, even if I were to ignore the software side, the OS side, and just say, hey, what do I get for the hardware? The hardware I've not had a problem with, from a standpoint that it is all designed to work together. Physically, it all fits together. I think the fit and finish is good. The device is very robust, and it is ready to go for you to run whatever type of OS that you want on it. That part has been very clear to me. Now, can you buy the different components yourself? Yes, but then you're not going to get kind of the unique styling and features of the ZimaCube itself. So overall, I'm happy that I have the unit. I can recommend it. So if you do jump in and get it, and you have a Zima OS version that's later than 1.2.4, then great. I'm assuming that you're in better shape than I was, but I would still say check it out for a couple days. Make sure that it meets all your needs. Make sure that it's stable, and if it is, then I would say go full bore and rely on the Zima OS as it is. Okay, now certainly if I got this and I did not have the stability issues, I would still be on Zima OS and I would be using the product just as it came to me. And so I think that will likely happen. And so perhaps if you buy the unit and you get something later than the Zima OS 1.2.4, then you might actually have a great time and be happy with it the way it is. And in fact, I might look at switching back to Zima OS at some point in the future. But for now, this is the way it is. If you have any questions about what I did, or if you have video ideas of, hey, can you show us using this device in this way, please put them in the comments down below. I do read the comments. I do try to respond to them. And then, if you have any of your own experience that you want to share with either TrueNAS, Unraid, or some other NAS system that you've also enjoyed, please put those in the comments below. It helps me learn. It helps the other viewers learn as well. So thank you for tuning in and staying till the end. If you would, hit that like button if you haven't already, and then also consider subscribing to my channel. That will get you notified when I have new videos released, and it also helps my channel grow. So thank you again for taking the time, and we will catch you on the next video.